My name is Nor Arlina Amirah, but usually people call me N. I work, previously, I worked with this organization called Rimba for about 3 years. So now I'm leading my own organization called Justice for Wildlife Malaysia. I'm the eldest out of four siblings. So part of my work now is quite influenced by what my family does because mom works in the law, not law enforcement per se, like she's working in the judiciary, and my sister does law as well. So I think it kind of like it influenced a bit my so-called career decisions. Yeah. After SPM, I went for matriculation. So when you go to matriculation, it's like there's two camps. One is the engineering camp and one is the biologist camp. So the biologist camp, they their career target is mostly on the medical side. So yeah, so I wasn't really interested in these two. Then after matriculation, my results, they were not so great to begin with. So when you don't have like such great results, you have like limited options. So I was just scrolling through the list of courses and then I thought, yeah, I could do bioinformatics. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But during the first year, I realized that, so essentially it's just computer science plus biology. It's great for me. And I never thought I would enjoy programming, but now I like it a lot. I finished my degree, I worked for a bit as a technical consultant. So I did apply to pursue my studies, but so that was like an interim. And then getting into the getting into the real world situation after degree, like kind of like made me realize that, you know what, I think I'm gonna continue studying. And I think it's not like a goal like I've set in stone, like I have to do it. But if the opportunity comes out, then I would pursue my studies per se because um so my PhD is an extension of my final year project. So I feel like that's a target I would like to pursue. I just want to see where it goes. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So as far as your career, like, do you consider, like, what would your job title be?
My job title. So as of now, I'm the director of my own initiative. So it's it's really a one-man show because as of now, I am the only person working with this initiative, but we have our legal advisor who's helping a lot with most of the networking stuff. Yeah, so my job is just be the boss. So we collaborate with a lot of other organizations as well because JWM is a very small organization. But yeah, I'm looking right now we are looking into like building some capacity so that we have more funding to hire more people. Yeah.
Okay. Um, you mentioned that you worked for Rimba for a couple of years, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And actually, I'm also really interested in conservation and biodiversity
Right.
efforts. So I've
Mm-hmm.
been following Rimba for quite some time as well.
Great. Yeah.
And I saw that you worked on the Harimau Selamanya project.
Correct. Yes.
I just wanted to know, like, what was that like? Like, what did you do as part of that research program, and what was your experience like? And was there anything significant in during that time that you were working with Rimba?
Right. Working with Rimba, I feel it's a when I first applied for Rimba, I think it was like a leap of faith sort of thing because it's completely different from what I've been doing. So I've always wanted to work with animals. It's just that, you know, whether I want to go through the veterinary route, medical route, or conservation. So I had some prior experience, but then I saw an opening for Rimba and then I thought, why not? So I just shot an application and they accepted me basically. And then I took a one-way flight to Terengganu, where our field site is. So back in 2017, my position was a monitoring specialist. So what I do is we have patrollers who would go to the forest and they would mount camera traps. So sometimes I would join these trips. But the bulk of my job is just to analyze what we get from these trips. So two things, the camera trap images and also the trip itself, because sometimes during those trips, these people would encounter, say, human signs, encroachment signs. So my job is to analyze those things and come up with some suggestions or recommendations on the intervention that we need to do to make sure that the target population is healthy in Kenya. So that was probably the first year when I was with Rimba. And then as we move along, I I got inducted into several other projects as well. So uh, I think you might know that back in 2017, no, not 2017, sorry, 2018, we actually assisted the state government in gazetting the Terengganu State Park enactments. So I work a lot with the State Park Management Council now. So now it is more of a policy slash legislation sort of work. Yeah. So it's when I first worked with Rimba, I would have I would have assumed that there would be more men than women. It is like in the context of Rimba, it's true to some extent because the patrollers, they are all men, the patrollers. So it's it's kind of strange, like living in the field house. Like at that time, there was just the two of us girls, and then there's like 12 to 14 guys. So there's bound to be a bit of an imbalance there, but we worked around it pretty well, I guess. So yeah.
Were there any negative perception towards like you and your job as being, as you said, there's less women in your field of work? Like, did you feel any sort of negative perception towards that? Or how was like the acceptance of
Mm,
it?
um, when I first joined Rimba, I remember the patrollers were very hesitant on having me in their group for forest patrols. So it's like, I don't think like girls can walk far and like we are slow and whatnot. But with these guys, you kind of have to push your way through it. So I didn't go for that many trips, but some of my colleagues, women, they have been through several other trips, several other trips, and they are quite strong, like in the field. But yeah, but then when it comes to conservation, I won't exactly say it's balanced, but usually women, they would work more on the analytical slash managerial side of things because most of the work on the ground that we do, it's quite I think it's challenging, but the opportunity for women to sort of like be, say, a patroller is um I don't think the opportunity is very much available
I
here.
see.
Yeah.
Do you think it's changing? Like, do you think there are more opportunities for women to pursue this career path or that role?
I think it is somehow because based on my observation, especially on social media, on Twitter, I've been seeing a lot of women actually they've been leading their own projects. We have some very prominent conservationists. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Pelf, who heads the Turtle Conservation Society. Bam, who manages Grab, the Gibbon
Yeah.
rehab project. Yeah, so we have a lot of women who's like very prominent in conservation, but somehow or other, I think it is not known. So I think I think so people might see it as it's like a man's field, when in fact for me I don't think that's the case. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I relate to that as well because I'm currently
Yeah.
studying biotechnology.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, so I'm really interested in like that side of conservation. So I've gotten lots of like comments, like especially when people ask me what do you study, and then
Mm-hmm.
compared to my other classmates who are guys, when they say biotechnology, they'll be like, oh, okay, cool. But when I say biotechnology, they're like, really, you? So like that's generally the
Why
response.
is that though?
I'm not sure too. Like I that's why I'm like quite confused as well, because I don't think that I see more and more women being in this field in terms of
Mm-hmm.
science and conservation and stuff, but I think like maybe like the general society, like they kind of see women as like, I don't know, like maybe they see women as like weaker, or they don't, like as you said, in terms of field work, like they don't see women as being strong enough or tough enough to face those challenges perhaps.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, I guess so. But when it comes to be honest, I would say women are better scientists. This is personal opinion, but yeah, I honestly think women are better scientists. But I think it's just the lack of the lack of information on the opportunities. Yeah, and then people would associate like certain careers with women. Like, there's a label of women being nurturing, so there's like a label like women should only work, uh, should have like this set of occupations only. Yeah, so it's but it's changing now, I guess. Uh, it actually started off with this project that I got myself involved with when I was with Rimba. So in Rimba, we have, yes, I was under Harimau Selamanya, but under Harimau Selamanya, there's like several, I would say, several initiatives. So the initiative that I led was, it's called the Justice for Silent Victims initiative, J4SV for short lah. So basically, what what my focus is, building the prosecution officers' capacity. So so you know how it works, like in wildlife crimes, I think once you arrest someone, you need to investigate and then you prosecute and then you get them sentenced. So my job is to enhance towards the end of the pipeline, so prosecution and sentencing. So I first started off with that project, and then somehow already it got bigger. So we've decided that probably it's best to just like have a separate entity to focus solely on these things. So part of the reason why I founded Justice for Wildlife Malaysia is not just to cater for that project, but ultimately I think the aim is to just breach um, the law and wildlife conservation. I'm I'm not saying that there's a disconnect, but um, I think that these two fields they need to work together better. So because we, like, as much as science is important, at the end of the day is the policy makers and the legislation people who are going to take these scientific outcomes, outputs, and translate it into something that is so-called legal. Yeah. So that's basically what drives me to work on this. I work a lot with men who's like quite established in this field. So the problem with them is that sometimes when you talk, they don't really listen and they don't take you seriously. So like as time goes by, I've learned that sometimes you just have to push through it, just make yourself heard, and then yeah. But yes, I have encountered some, because like in this field, especially in prosecution, I would say a lot of them are men that I work with. So yeah, it's pretty difficult to get them to listen to you. But hopefully now things can change. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that sense, do you think that representation, like women representation in all types of field of work, especially as you said, like persecution as well as conservation, do you think it's important? And like how does women representation, how do you think it can impact the younger generation?
I think it's just, so when you talk about representation, I think it's just being there, like being in the field. So there's a strength in numbers. So if young girls, they see like a lot of women are doing conservation, a lot of women are going down the field, mounting camera traps, they would be interested. So, but the thing is, we don't see this as much in the media. So, but I'm glad to see that at least on certain social media like Twitter, we have been seeing like a lot of women doing these things. So it's pretty great. And when you're in the field, you get to see, oh, there's actually women and there's quite a big number, but it's just not out there. So I'm guessing it depends on the field as well. And I think a lot of people, they would assume that conservation is a very exclusive field. Like, you have to have a certain background, you have to have a certain, but for me, it's not. You just have to have the passion. It doesn't matter what you do really, because in conservation, we need every help we can get. Yeah.
Okay, so as you mentioned just now, sometimes it can be difficult to be listened to, especially around like community that's very male dominant. So,
Mm-hmm.
and you mentioned that sometimes you just have to push through. So I'm interested to know like what makes you or what inspires you to continue pushing through so that your voice gets heard.
Mm, I guess it's just seeing other women's experience for me. So when I was with Rimba, one of my bosses, Shima, she's super amazing. Like she works in flying fox conservation. Um, I got to know about her from my co-supervisor when I did my PhD. So she was just recommending that, hey, you should read Shima's paper. So as I read through, I'm like, she's great at what she does. So as you see these women struggle and achieving what they are achieving now because of that struggle, that sort of inspires you. And then as I like the longer I have been in this conservation field, I've been seeing people like Pelf, for example, who I would say back then almost single-handedly handle TCS. And then there are several others like our collaboration partners, all women who worked a lot on the field. So like seeing their struggles sort of made me think like, hey, I can do this as well. Yeah, things get tough, but you know that there's something you can achieve. Yeah, I think it's a sense of accomplishment that drives me. Yeah. That's it.
I see.
Mhm.
And so in this field of work, your career, what do you find it most fulfilling about it?
Mm, I think it's just maybe you need a little bit of context. So for JWM, we work a lot with prosecuting officers. We train them. So sometimes it's nice to see like those training translated to something like say in the news. The judges passed out like quite deterrent sentence for wildlife poachers. So it's essentially seeing that. And but in the long run, I think it's the satisfaction of providing more protection for our wildlife. So that means, having better legislation, having better enforcement on the ground. So yeah, that gives like somehow a kind of satisfaction for me, I guess. Yeah.
I see. So, do you have like a role model or someone who is an inspiration for you?
In the field, you mean, is it?
Yeah.
Yes. My previous boss, Shima, Pelf, I look up to her quite, yeah. And then Bam, these three, yeah, these are the like women in Malaysia's conservation niche or field. Yeah, I look up to them quite a lot.
Okay. And so as we discussed, yeah, like in this field of work in conservation and science, perhaps there is
Mm-hmm.
sort of like a difference between the ratio of men and women. So there's still a prominent male dominance, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in your opinion, what do you think is a way to move forward, or is there a possible solution to, change this to encourage more women to partake in this field of work?
Um, I think it's just like what you're doing now, say a digital campaign that could work, and then just so what I notice could help is just like promoting each other. So sometimes like when CPAF has an event or organizes any event, we we sort of like promote each other. So I'm guessing the best way to get more women to be interested in this is to just get it out there. You know, like, hey, there's this field, you know, it would be great if you could join conservation, especially if you have the passion. And I think when it comes to wildlife conservation, we I need to put it out there that it's not an exclusive field. Whatever you do, like, because we need say it's not just biology graduates or zoology graduates that could do this. I'm not trained in conservation, so we need lawyers, we need economists, we need uh, psychologists even, to because a lot of this a lot of these interventions in conservation, they involve like human behavior as well. So it's not just a fully scientific field. So I think that's the one thing that we need to disseminate to young kids, and then yeah, work our way towards getting more people to join. Yeah, just putting it out there.
I see. Okay.
Mhm.
And I also want to know, like, do you think that it's more difficult for women to apply for this like field of career? Like, do you think they are less likely to be selected for particular jobs? And like, what are your thoughts on that?
Mm, I would say it depends, because so when I first applied for Rimba, the job description simply said, like, you have to be fit because you need to track in the forest, whatnot. So that might deter girls for a bit, but it depends only if there's like any girl who's sporty enough, like you do exercise, you work out. I think it doesn't really matter. Uh, but in terms of acceptance, I'm guessing if you're good, you would be accepted. But then it depends on the kind of position that you applied for. If it's more of a field kind of thing, I know it could be a bit difficult, especially if you need to relocate and you work at the field with, I don't know, 10 boys at the field house, and then it's kind of hard for them to accommodate girls in that sense. Yeah,
I
so
see.
that's probably one barrier. Yeah.